Hi there guys, Tom Quayle here. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Hope everybody is doing extremely well out there as always. So for today, I want to tackle a subject which I get asked a massive number of questions on. In fact, it's one of the most common questions I get asked. And actually one of the original YouTube videos, I think it was one of the first 2 or 3 YouTube videos I did on my channel where I was speaking rather than playing, was tackling this idea of fourths tuning, why I tune the guitar the way I do. And I'm going to explain what that tuning is in a second. In this video, I want to update this and I want to do a much better quality video because that was back in the days. It must have been 11, 12 years ago when I had way more hair, was a lot skinnier, just generally a lot younger and fitter and less tired. But these days I have some not new thoughts, but just maybe a better way of explaining this. And I want to show you why this tuning is beneficial and, very importantly, why it's got some major disadvantages as well. So as you'll all know, standard tuning for guitar, the tuning that 99.9% of you out there will be using, gives you the following open string notes. We have a low E, an A, a D, a G, then you have a B and an E. So you're doubling up on the lowest and the high string with the same note, 2 E's, and then of course you've got this B. Now, if you think about this in terms of the intervals between the strings and the way you would tune each string, you guys on a basic level will probably be aware that you tune the A string to the 5th fret of the E string, and you continue in this fashion, so the D string is tuned to the 5th fret of the A, the G string is tuned to the 5th fret of the D string, but when you get to the B string, you tune it to the 4th fret. And then you go back to the 5th fret to tune the high E to the B string. Now, what this gives you in terms of intervals is a perfect fourth between the E and the A, the same between the A and the D, the same between the D and the G, but then a major third between the G and the B, and then a perfect fourth again between the B and the E. So there's this little kink in standard tuning where we've got a major third between that G and B string, but every other string pair is a perfect fourth. Now, this is really useful because this allows us to play all of these open string chords that we all know and love, and also the bar chords that we all know and love as well. However, it does present us with a little bit of a problem when we visualize the fretboard and we learn shapes on the instrument, because that little kink in the tuning means that we have to learn individual chord, arpeggio, and scale shapes for each string set. So if I was to play a G major 7 chord down here, which I wouldn't recommend because it's going to be very muddy, I can now transpose this shape up and down and nothing is going to change about this shape. So if I wanted to play C major 7, all I have to do is move this shape to the 8th fret. However, if I wanted to play C major 7 on the middle 4 strings, because of the B string, I have to adjust my shape to fit. So in this instance, I get this shape. You'll probably recognize this C major 7 shape. If I was to play the same thing on the upper 4 strings and play C major 7, I would have to do it here. Here's my C, and the shape would be different again. Okay, so this is really, really important for standard tuning. In fourths tuning, what we do is we tune everything to the 5th fret. So that G and B string combination where we tune to the 4th fret, I'm actually tuning it to the 5th fret, which gives me the note C for my open string here. So instead of B, I've got C, then I've got an F as my highest string. So now in fourths tuning, I have E, A, D, G, C, and F. And this means that I've got perfect fourths between every single string, hence the term fourths tuning, or some people call it perfect fourths tuning. Okay, now what this means is I've got perfect symmetry on the fretboard now. So any chord shape that I play, let's go back to that G major 7. Let's move it to the 8th fret for C major 7. Now if I play this at the 3rd fret of the A string as a C major 7, I can use exactly the same shape because there is no difference in the tuning as I move up to the G and the B string, or that kind of C string for me. So instead of having to adjust the shape or compensate the shape, I have exactly the same shape. The same thing would happen if I played at this C on the top 4 strings, or the highest string set if you like, I would get the same shape. So one more time, C major 7, C major 7, C major 7. You can hear they're all the same, and the physical shape of them is exactly the same as well. This goes for anything that I might want to play. So for example, if I was going to play a C major 7 arpeggio, and I did this fingering, let's complete it up the octave. If I did the same thing from the low E string, exactly the same shape. If I did it from the D string at the 10th fret, exactly the same shape. Now in standard tuning, you would have to adjust the shape in order to compensate for the major third between the G and the B string. And anytime you cross over that B string, so if you went from D to B, or if you went from D to the high E, or you went from G to the high E, any combination of strings that crosses over that B string, you need to compensate for that particular kind of kink in the tuning, if you like. Whereas in fourths tuning, that doesn't need to happen. Okay, now I can demonstrate this to you by use of, I'm going to load up my app Solo so I can show this to you. Some of you guys will be aware of Solo. If you're not, don't worry. This is just to demonstrate the principle behind this. So on Solo here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab major 7 chords, just straight major 7 chords, and I'm going to grab root and third as my level. So what Solo is going to do is it's going to ask me to play a cycle of 12 major 7 chords and ask me to play the root and the third for each of those as individual notes. So if I hit Start Changes Workout here, first chord is A major 7. Now, I've learnt that on my guitar, or in fourths tuning, a major third, if this is A, the root note, at the 7th fret of the D string, the major third looks like this against the A, or against the root note. So it's basically up a string and back a fret. This is 1, you can see it's picked up the 1, and then the 3 is here. So this is the visual relationship. Okay, now it's asking for D major 7, and it's asking for the 1 and the 3. Now what I can do is I can literally take exactly the same shape starting on D here at the 7th fret of the G string, and I can literally use the same piece of information that I just played, this visual piece of information, to play that major third. So here's the 1, D, and then I'm going to go up a string and back a fret for my major third. You can see that worked great. Now I'll do the same thing here. If I go to this G, just here, at the 12th fret of the G string, play the root, and again, exactly the same piece of visual information to find that major third. Now in standard tuning, you'd have to compensate for some of these shapes. Now I should say at this point that my buddy David Beebe, who I designed this app Solo in conjunction with, he actually has done all of this work in standard tuning, and he is going to produce a really great video for his YouTube channel that will talk you through this compensation process and how you can learn it. I don't want to go into that now because I'm really just showing you the advantage of fourths tuning here. Or perfect fourths tuning. And hopefully you can see just from this basic piece of information here that you only have to learn one thing. You just learn one shape. Where is the root note? Where is the third? And you never have to alter that shape. So here's my C here for C major 7, 5th fret of the G string. Exactly the same piece of information. Here's the third. Now the same thing would apply if I went in and I said, okay, I'm going to choose the root, third and 5th. Let's go for minor 7 chords, hit start. Okay, it's going to ask me for A minor 7. Here's the root note A. I know my flat 3 looks like this in relation to the root note. So it's basically up a string and back 2 frets, okay? I don't think about it in that way when I actually play. I've just catalogued the visual shape of it. Again, I've got videos on my YouTube channel talking about this stuff. So it's up a string and back 2 frets from the root note. If I play it, look at that visual relationship. And then the 5th, there's multiple ways of playing these intervals, but the 5th I'm going to locate, there's the root note. Looks just like a power chord. If you've ever played a power chord, you know what a root and a 5 looks like. Here's the 5. Okay. Now I can do exactly the same thing. I've learned how to play a flat 3 or a minor third and a 5th now, and I never have to compensate in this tuning for anything. There's no tuning kinks or kind of issues with the tuning. It just is the same everywhere. It's totally symmetrical. So here is D. It's asking me for D minor 7. Here's the 1. Now Solo's asking for the flat 3. So again, there's that same visual relationship. Up a string, back 2 frets. No need to compensate for standard tuning, of course. Let's play that. Here's my D root note again, and I can find the 5th using exactly the same shape. Okay, let's do something slightly different now. So if I grab this G just here, which would be there for you guys, and I look down to the flat 3, I could play it here. That was 1 to flat 3. Remember that visual shape. Here's my root note, which is, it's going to look weird to you guys because you are used to having G here. Everything is back of fret on those top 2 strings. So I've had to relearn, or just learn generally, where the notes are if my strings are C and F as my open strings. So look at that visual relationship. The root note is here. I'm going down a string, then I'm going back essentially 4 frets to find my flat 3. To find the 5, I use the same fret but go down a string. So that visual relationship there. So here's the 5. If we do the same thing from C now, exactly the same shapes apply. Here's my C root note. There's the 1. Again, the same thing to find the flat 3. I come down a string and back 4 frets. Visually, that's the flat 3. I'm not worrying about the note name here. And here's the 5. So there's my root note and there's the 5. Do the same thing for F. Same thing for B flat, I could do it here. Same thing for E flat. So on and so forth, okay? So this essentially is a really efficient way of being able to catalogue the fretboard, because anytime I learn anything, be it a chord shape, a scale shape, or an arpeggio, I don't have to relearn it dependent on which string set or where on the guitar, which position I play it in. Again, same thing goes for scales. Here's a C major scale, so just a basic 7-note scale. I'll put the root note on the top again. Everyone should be familiar with that scale shape. If I play it from this C here at the 10th fret of the D string, exactly the same shape. From here, exactly the same shape. So, super useful tuning. However, as you can imagine, it allows you to learn the fretboard really quickly, but it presents as many problems as it solves. And one of the biggest problems that I always tell people who get really into this idea of speeding up this learning process, expediting this learning process, is the guitar is a very repertoire-based instrument. And that repertoire has been developed over many, many years, both in the classical sense and then in more modern pop music, based around standard tuning. So if we take something really simple, so if I was to play the classic blues phrase, suddenly this doesn't work anymore. This lick on its own works, but because of the required open strings for these chords, we've just lost the ability to play that piece of repertoire. If I was to try and play that all the way through, that it just doesn't work anymore, and there is no way of compensating for that with fourths tuning. I also cannot play any bar chords. Nothing works. All my open string chords are broken. Now I can play open string chords. There are ways of doing this. I can play a C major, or I could put the 5th on the top, or do this. A lot of that guitar repertoire is gone. All your country stuff is gone. All your Stevie Ray, kind of blues licks are gone. There's so much repertoire, including a lot of rock repertoire as well, that's gone. Now, this may not be a problem if you're lucky enough, like me, to be able to only play in your own style and not have to worry about playing, within that guitaristic repertoire. But most guitar players, the vast majority of guitar players, find themselves in a position where they need to teach, or they need to play function gigs, they need to play in top 40 bands, they need to play, in traditional settings, maybe in a studio session where you're being tasked with the idea of strumming a chord part that fits with a particular song that the artist is working on or the producer is working on. And you won't be able to do it in this tuning. It's not going to work. As an improvising musician like me, trying to carve your own voice and vocabulary and way through kind of harmony and music generally, it's not such an issue, and it will make that process faster. The other major issue is for chord melody stuff. If you're a solo guitarist, because you can't do those bar chords and free up other fingers because you don't have the facility to do the bar, it does actually make chord melody very difficult, because you'll find you can't sustain notes very easily. And that is one of the reasons why standard tuning exists, in order for you to be able to generate those bar chords. It's not a coincidence that that is the way that the guitar is tuned. So what I normally say to people is, if you fall into that camp of guitar player where you exclusively play your own music. You're not trying to play any repertoire. You don't need to be a hired gun, or you don't need to be a function band musician or to teach in a school, that kind of a thing. I would absolutely say, check it out. Check out force tuning. It's a really, really useful way of thinking about the guitar, and it yields some fantastic results in terms of creativity and in terms of, as I mentioned before, expediting or speeding up the learning process of the fretboard, because you're not dealing with that strange major third kink in standard tuning. However, if you have any kind of desires to make a living in a more traditional sense from playing guitar, I really, really, really wouldn't recommend it. So I hope that's useful, guys. In terms of some people to check out with, in this tuning, not just me, as I mentioned before, Alex Hutchins is a big proponent of this tuning. Stanley Jordan, amazing guitar player who plays two-handed touch style guitar, and force tuning is perfect for that because you've got the symmetry of both hands, and it just removes a particular complexity that would occur. Otherwise, if you were playing in standard tuning, it would be very, very complex to make that work. Another great, amazing guitar player who plays in force tuning is Ant Law. You have to check out Ant Law, and Ant wrote a great book about force tuning as well, which I will link to below. And if you want to check out Ant's book, he's got a bunch of different tutorial material in that book about the concept of force tuning. Now, Ant is interesting because Ant tunes slightly differently. The way he does it is he keeps the top two strings as B and E, but tunes the lower four strings down a semitone, which yields the same results, but now you've got an E flat, an A flat, a D flat, a G flat, a B, and an E, which is still all fourths. But of course now, instead of having these top two strings tuned differently, the lowest four strings are tuned differently. So Ant is a very interesting example in that regard, and an extraordinary guitar player. So I definitely recommend you check Ant out as well. As I say, I'll link to his book below. Right guys, so as I say, I hope you found that useful. If you did, of course, hit the like and subscribe button below. This is common YouTube fare now. And of course, hit the bell notification icon if you want to be notified every time I upload new content. Make sure you check out the Solo app as well. I've been uploading regular content with David Beebe on the Solo YouTube channel, so you can get on there and subscribe. If you want to learn the fretboard, we don't think, I know we're biased, but we don't think there is a better tool out there for doing it and having a good practice sort of setup for learning the fretboard, especially if you're in fourths tuning. But as I say, David is going to upload a video very soon to his YouTube channel where he talks about doing this process in standard tuning, which I think you guys will find very interesting. So I will link his channel below as well. Okay, thanks for watching, guys. Good luck with all of your practice, and I hope to see you all again very soon indeed. Bye-bye.